Hello and welcome to Lockdown Learning with Guardians of the Deep. I'm Sally and today we'll be learning about cetaceans. We'll start off with questions of the content that will be covered during this presentation. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to answer all of these questions. If you'd like to make a note of them before we start, pause the video now to take a photo or screenshot. The 90 recognized species of cetaceans are classed within 14 families. The right and bowhead whales, pygmy right whale, grey whale, rorquals, sperm whale, dwarf and pygmy sperm, narwhal and beluga, beaked whales, marine dolphins, river dolphins in 4 families, and porpoises. The characteristics uniting these families include a streamlined body, flattened foreflippers, no hind limbs, sometimes only present as vestiges, a thick layer of blubber, internal reproductive organs, boneless tail flukes, elongated skull, and nasal openings on the top of their head. While these common features unite them, one noticeable trait among a few others divides them: dentition. The moustached, a name roughly derived from the Greek for moustached sea monster, are the baleen whales. 14 species have these giant sieves in place of teeth. These dense, comb-like structures hang down from their top jaw, allowing these whales to efficiently filter feed large quantities of small prey such as krill. The toothed sea monsters, or odontocetes, include the remaining 76 cetacean species. This group of animals feeds on individual prey, as opposed to the swarms of krill being gulped by their baleen counterparts, and tends to do this feeding at greater depths. An element that I find rather endearing, one that occurs in all cetaceans, are the fetal folds. Being bent dorsolaterally in the womb creates folds on the side of the calf that remain for several weeks after birth, fading with time as the calf fills out and grows. These folds are one of the neonatal characteristics that help to determine age, especially during necropsies. The ocean's deepest diver belongs to the cetaceans. The record is held by Cuvier's beaked whale that dived down to a depth of 2,992 meters off the coast of North Carolina in 2011. This species also holds the record for the second longest dive after the sperm whale, lasting 137.5 minutes. Cetaceans include an incredibly wide range of sizes, the largest being the blue whale, or specifically the Antarctic subspecies, at a maximum length of approximately 33 meters and a weight of 190 tons. This whale is also the largest animal to have ever lived. At the other end of the scale is the vaquita, measuring as little as 1.25 meters and weighing in at only 55 kilograms. Found only in the extreme north of the Gulf of California, this teeny tiny cetacean is also the most endangered marine mammal in the world, with an estimate of only 10 individuals left in 2018. I'll chat more about this and other porpoises a bit later in the presentation. For now, we're going to start with the whales. There are 42 species in this group, which includes both moustached and odontocetes. The diet of this group is as varied as the animals within it. The 14 species of baleen whale feed on large numbers of small prey, mostly fish and crustaceans. Sperm whales prey mainly on deep water squid and deep sea fish, with females feeding on smaller individuals than males. Female sperm whales eat approximately 750 squid over a 24-hour period, averaging 37 per foraging dive, while males only eat around 350, but of much larger individuals. The two Kogia species, the dwarf and pygmy sperm whales, also enjoy a diet of mostly squid, their anatomy suggesting powerful suction feeding. The two Arctic species of Monodontidae, the narwhal and beluga, have diets that vary with region and season, generally feeding on fish, squid, and crustaceans. The elusive and little-known beaked whales eat mostly squid, using suction as the few teeth that they do have are not used for feeding but rather for fighting. The tusk of the narwhal is also actually a tooth, the left upper canine to be exact. Erupting when the animal is no more than 3 years old, it penetrates the upper lip and grows continuously, spiraling counterclockwise. Typically, the tusk grows to approximately 2 meters in length and weighing 10 kilos, and is surprisingly flexible, bending about 30 centimeters in each direction. Its purpose is widely debated, with theories including it being a sensory organ, detecting changes in the animal's environment, and being used to stun its prey, a bit like the sailfish. Most evidence supports the theory that it fills a role similar to that of the antlers on a stag, determining social structure and to impress females. Vocalizations also vary between the mystacetes and the odontocetes. The baleen whales use low-frequency communication, the sound, form, and length being dependent on species, season, region, reason for the communication, and whether it's emitted by a male, female, or calf. The humpback whale is known for the longest and most complex songs of the animal kingdom. These haunting melodies are sung by males and can be heard over long distances. Toothed cetaceans use echolocation to orientate, navigate, and detect food and avoid predators. Bulbous fatty area on their forehead, called the melon, a feature missing from mystacetes, is believed to be used to focus and modulate sounds for echolocation. The 3 sperm whale species have a large oil-filled reservoir, the spermaceti organ, the principal function of which appears to be to form and focus the clicks used in their extremely powerful echolocation system. The 2 Koge species also share a unique feature. When startled or distressed, they release a reddish-brown liquid, forming a cloud in the water and allowing the whale to escape by distracting the predator, like the ink of a squid. Being the least known of all large animals, the beaked whales are rarely seen, some species never having been seen alive, with all of our information coming from stranded individuals. Such deep-diving animals have evolved an array of physiological adaptations and behaviors to survive the crushing pressure at such depths. Their rib cages can fold down, collapsing their lungs and reducing air pockets. They shunt blood flow from their extremities to the brain, heart, and muscles, and they also shut down digestion and kidney and liver function. With a lowered heart rate, these animals also restrict their movement, gliding rather than swimming down to these extreme depths. While scientists are still trying to figure out how these animals can make such deep dives, and so regularly with no extended recovery period, they only spend a couple of minutes at the surface between these dives, we do know that they store most of their oxygen in their blood and muscles. With a high blood to body volume ratio, they do have a much greater oxygen reserve than most other animals. The elusive behavior of the beaked whales could have counted in their favor with only 3 species having been targeted by commercial whalers. Centuries of whaling decimated populations, 97% of blue whales being lost to this industry. In 1986, commercial whaling was banned by the IWC, the International Whaling Commission. And now, thanks to global protection, the establishment of marine protected areas and ocean sanctuaries, populations of a number of whale species are recovering. The conservation status of the humpback and southern right whales have been downgraded to least concern. And this year, 2020, saw a survey count 55 blue whale individuals, warranting a 2021 assessment of recovery by the IWC. Some species have not been so lucky. The outlook for the 2 northern right whales looks bleak, with both of them still classed as endangered. Of the 42 whale species, 23 are classed as data deficient. That includes 20 species of the elusive beaked whales. 11 species have been downgraded to least concern, and the Antarctic minke is currently the only whale species in the near threatened category. The fin and sperm whales, plus a subpopulation of Cuvier's beaked whales, are vulnerable to extinction, while the northern right whales, the Atlantic and Pacific, the Psy, Grey, Blue, and subpopulations of humpback, sperm, and bowhead are still endangered. The Antarctic subspecies of blue whale and a subpopulation of southern right are still sitting on the edge of the extinction precipice, with both being critically endangered. Towards the end of this presentation, we'll be looking at some of the research and conservation efforts being carried out in order to ensure their survival. The troubled whaling past of the whales is not mirrored by the dolphin group of cetaceans, although they are faced with their own myriad of threats. The 41 dolphin species include 37 marine and 4 river dolphins. Blackfish is a group of 6 superficially similar, all with dark black coloration, members from the Delphinidae family, marine dolphins. They include the killer whale, false killer whale, pygmy killer whale, melon-headed whale, long-fin pilot whale, and short-fin pilot whale. This group lacks the characteristic dolphin beak and range in size from 2 meters, the pygmy killer whale, to nearly 10 meters, the killer whale. This also makes the killer whale the largest of the dolphin species. Killer whales have an astonishing array of ecologically distinct forms called ecotypes. Even if they inhabit the same waters, different ecotypes do not associate with each other, having different seasonal distribution patterns, social structures, behavior, prey and habitat preferences, foraging techniques, and dialects. They are reproductively isolated and genetically distinct. Their appearance is just as varied, the ecotypes being identified through subtle differences in the shape of the dorsal fin, the pigmentation of their saddle patch, the size, shape, and orientation of the eye patch, the presence or absence of a dorsal cape, and overall coloration. There are at least 40 distinct populations, and it is believed that South Africa has several ecotypes, including visitors from the Antarctic. We'll chat more about a very special duo a little later in the presentation. As you can imagine, sleeping at sea for air-breathing animals poses a few issues. They cannot find a rocky refuge on the sea floor in which to hide, as they need to be able to breathe at the sea surface. And being stationary at the surface makes them vulnerable to predators, young cetaceans needing to stay moving to also avoid sinking. The mother spends the first few weeks of the calf's life continually swimming, towing the young along in a slipstream. Cetaceans are therefore able to nap while on the move, staying vigilant of any potential threats. Bottlenose dolphins have been documented shutting down one brain hemisphere along with its opposite eye, while slowly swimming in a tight pod. Sperm whales adopt another sleeping method of hanging vertically in the water column while properly asleep, but only for short periods of time. I've included the 4 river dolphins on this slide, as I'd like to share a few interesting facts. Occurring in Asian and South American river systems, these 4 cetaceans are all threatened with extinction. The Amazon river dolphin is famous for its pink coloring. This pink color is especially prevalent in older males and is caused by the progressive loss of their natural gray color and the buildup of scar tissue from fighting. This makes the blood under their skin more visible and is believed to fill a display function to advertise maturity. While still recorded as critically endangered, the Yangtze River dolphin is thought to be functionally extinct, with only a few unconfirmed sightings being recorded since 2007. Dolphins use echolocation to map out a picture of their surrounding environment by interpreting the echoes of sound waves bouncing off submerged objects. This allows the animals to navigate and hunt in low light and in areas with high turbidity. As mentioned, the 4 river dolphin species are all threatened with extinction, as are 11 of the marine species. 21 dolphin species are currently classed as least concern, while there are still 5 species with a data deficient status. Moving on now to the last cetacean group, we are going to look at the porpoises. Even though the term porpoise is often used interchangeably with dolphins, there are only 7 porpoise species. Do you know any of the differences between dolphins and porpoises? Think about what the different species from each group look like. But remember that for an accurate identification, a suite of characteristics should always be used together. So porpoises have spade-shaped teeth, while dolphins have conical. Porpoises lack the distinct beak, but then so do the members of the blackfish group. Porpoises are shy and not as gregarious as dolphins, living alone or in smaller groups. But then the same can be said for the elusive Indian Ocean humpback dolphin. They tend to be smaller and stockier than the sleeker dolphins, but this used on its own is not always conclusive, as some dolphins are also quite small. The shape of their dorsal fin, being triangular compared to the hooked fin of the dolphin, is not always a reliable feature. Think about the heavy-sized dolphins, who also have a triangular dorsal fin. But that is when their distribution becomes important. Heavy-sides occur on the coasts of southwestern Africa, and there is no porpoise species overlapping in range. In fact, there are no porpoises found in South African waters. It is also important to note that 2 of the porpoise species are finless, as in no dorsal fin. Making a distinct explosive noise as it surfaces to exhale, the common porpoise is known as a puffin pig, and due to the stream of water that arcs up over its head when it reaches the surface, the Dall's porpoise is known for this rooster tail of spray. The Dall's porpoise can also tell killer whale ecotypes apart. They approach and swim amongst residents, but flee from the transients. This porpoise is also the fastest small cetacean, with burst speeds of 55 kilometers an hour. Killer whales can reach a burst speed of 48 kilometers an hour, whilst the sei whale is the fastest baleen whale at 37 kilometers an hour. 3 porpoise species have an IUCN status of least concern, while the remaining 4 species are all threatened with extinction. The near-threatened, vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered categories representing 1 species each. We are now going to shift to a more local focus by examining the species frequenting South African waters, starting with the more common species. Can you name any of the whales or dolphins that can be seen off our shores? Remember, we don't have porpoises here. The Brutus whale complex currently consists of 2 or 3 subspecies or species, the precise taxonomic status of all still being in dispute. There are 2 recognized subspecies, the larger pelagic form and the smaller coastal form. There is also a genetically distinct resident population in a small area of the northern Gulf of Mexico. This opportunistic feeder changes its prey preference depending on availability, geographical location, season, and year. It also has a wide variety of foraging techniques: lunge feeding, skim feeding, bubble netting, common in humpback whales, trap feeding, and chin slaps to aggregate zooplankton. The Brutus whale is listed as least concern by the IUCN. I've included the killer whale, even though its presence is unpredictable in our coastal waters. They're seen relatively frequently offshore by deep-sea fishermen. As mentioned, it is believed that South Africa has several ecotypes, including visitors from the Antarctic. This species is spotted most often between Cape Town and Algoa Bay in the east, but sightings have occurred at locations along the entire South African coastline. The IUCN still classes killer whales as data deficient. Both the common and the Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins are found in our waters. The precision of the bottlenose dolphin echolocation system is very impressive, being able to detect a 7-centimeter ball 113 meters away. Their foraging techniques are even more varied than the Brutus whale and depend on location and prey species. Their techniques include high-speed chases, bubble blowing, fish whacking, strand feeding, kaplunking, mud ringing, scavenging discarded fish from trawlers, and stealing fish from fishing gear. Globally, the common bottlenose dolphin is listed as least concern, but there are a few populations, along with the Black Sea subspecies, that are threatened with extinction. The Indo-Pacific species is listed as data deficient. The common dolphin is famous for its large, fast-swimming pods that disturb sea surface, revealing up to 5,000 individuals. A participant in the annual sardine run off our wild coast, these dolphins use cooperative feeding techniques to seemingly effortlessly attack schooling fish bait balls. The IUCN deemed these beautifully patterned dolphins to be of least conservation concern. There are a possible 7 disjunct populations of the highly acrobatic dusky dolphin, all occurring in the cool temperate waters of the southern hemisphere. The southwest African population is associated with the whole Benguela Current and occurs between False Bay in South Africa and Lobito Bay in Angola. Hybrids with the southern right whale dolphin have also been documented. The dusky is classed as data deficient. As the name suggests, the endangered Indian Ocean humpback dolphin is endemic to the Indian Ocean basin. They occupy the nearshore environment, putting them at greater risk of entanglements with coastal gill nets and shark nets. Their varied diet includes shallow, estuarine, and reef fish species, squid, octopuses, and crustaceans. Some individuals deliberately and temporarily strand on exposed sandbanks in pursuit of fish. The near-threatened heavy-sides dolphin is endemic to the Benguela ecosystem. Their antics and boisterous surf techniques endearing them to all who witness their highly energetic acrobatic displays. Their population is estimated to be at just over 7,000 individuals. You might be thinking that at this point I've left out 2 rather important species. I have in fact given them their very own slide. 2 whale species that visit our shores as part of their annual migration to and from the Antarctic feeding grounds. Do you recognize either of them? Breeding in the tropical and subtropical waters off Africa's coast, the humpback whale spends the winter months in these warmer waters. While adults are rarely attacked by predators, these whales are known to fight back using their powerful flukes and long pectoral fins that are armed with barnacles. Humpbacks make a wide variety of vocalizations, including feeding calls, social sounds, and trumpet blasts that are used to communicate on both the feeding and breeding grounds and on migration. The males are the ones that produce the long, complex songs that can be heard all year round and last up to 20 minutes. Photo identification can be done by comparing the unique black and white pigmentation pattern and scarring on the underside of the flukes, as well as looking at the serrations on their trailing edge. The shape, size, and scarring of the dorsal fin is also an extensively used form of ID. While globally humpback whales are listed as least concern, there is an endangered population in the Arabian Sea. The southern right whale uses the calm protected waters found along our coast to breed during the winter months. There are 5 main color variants documented in the southern right, and these skin patterns are not known in the 2 northern right species. The southern right being the only cetacean in which atypical white individuals are relatively common. As with the humpback, this right whale also fights back when attacked by predators. hitting them with their powerful tails and ramming their callosity-roughened heads. This whale species uses a variety of moans, groans, grunts, sighs, bellows, and pulses to communicate between individuals. Callosities, the white growths found on their heads, are not barnacles, but rather callous tissue, the size and shape of which act like a fingerprint for identification purposes. The global population of southern right whales is listed as least concern, but there is a critically endangered subpopulation found off Chile and Peru. There is a very cool pair that I would now like to introduce you to, Port and Starboard. Looking at the two photos on the right, can you work out which one is which? Due to the curve of this dorsal fin being to the left, the top one is called port. And with the collapse of this dorsal fin being orientated to the right, the bottom one is called starboard. Collapsed dorsal fins in the wild is not common, with only a few individuals being documented. In 1998, 23% of the observed New Zealand adult male killer whale population had collapsed, or bent dorsal fins, with less than 5% recorded in the British Columbian population and less than 1% in the Norwegian population. One of the theories as to why this happens is age. The structure of the dorsal fin, which never stops growing and can reach a staggering 2 meters, becomes weak as the animal gets older, resulting in less rigidity that would cause curling, rolling, collapsing, and a concertina effect on the trailing edge. As I mentioned earlier, different ecotypes use specialized foraging techniques to target specific prey. For example, the pack ice ecotype of Antarctica hunts in coordinated groups and uses the wave washing technique, charging an ice floe in a parallel formation and creating a bow wave with a follow-up larger wave from their powerful tails to wash Weddell seals into the water. Port and Starboard, who hunt as a pair, have become famous for their clinical hunting technique. They hunt great white, bronze whaler, and seven-gill sharks, only eating the nutrient-rich livers that they remove with almost surgical precision, leaving the rest of the carcass for scavengers, just reaffirming that they are in fact the ocean's apex predator. There is a collaborative study happening here in South Africa, the Killer Whale Research Project, between the government, several universities, and a number of local organizations to learn more about these animals. They aim to look at genetics and diet from collected skin samples and attach satellite tags to monitor movement patterns. Another fascinating phenomenon are the humpback whale supergroups aggregating along our west coast. Occurring in the Benguela upwelling system off the shores of southwestern Africa, groups of approximately 200 whales are forming to feed on krill and mantis shrimp. These gatherings occur mostly during their spring migration back to their feeding grounds in the south. Biologists are debating whether this change in behavior is due to shifts in prey availability as a result of changing conditions, or if it's due to the increase in numbers seen from their post-whaling recovery. The annual West Coast Humpback Whale Survey aims to find the answers by studying prey availability, local conditions, and whale behavior. It is the general consensus, however, that this region is or is still developing into an important seasonal feeding ground. While their recovery is awesome news, these whales, along with the rest of the cetaceans, are still being faced with so many threats and on a daily basis. As we've learned, species like the humpback and southern right whales are recovering well from the decimation unleashed on them during the years of whaling. Other species, however, have not been so lucky, such as the northern Atlantic right whale, who has shown no signs of recovery in the past 15 years. Climate change affects prey availability, decreasing numbers and shifting locations, and increases the loss of sea ice, impacting the habitats of polar prey. Many species encounter active and ghost fishing gear, resulting in horrific entanglements. Some cetaceans are caught as bycatch, such as the vaquita, while all whales, dolphins, and porpoises are affected to some degree by the high levels of pollution choking our ocean. Overfishing of prey species will have a knock-on impact for cetaceans. Our ocean is a busy place with an enormous amount of ship traffic that doesn't always take the presence of resident or migrating animals into account along their many routes, leading to ship strikes. The exploration and extraction of oil, gas, and minerals not only destroys habitats, but exponentially increases underwater noise on a local scale. Critical habitats used for feeding, mating, giving birth, nursing young, socializing, or migration are being lost through so many anthropogenic activities. Only a tiny fraction of these habitats are currently being protected. And that is where organizations such as WWF and the International Whaling Commission come in. These organizations advocate conservation and protection, working with governments to establish ocean sanctuaries and formulate protective legislation. South Africa's marine protected areas, currently protecting 5% of our waters, act to create a refuge for resident and visiting species. The goal is to achieve 30% protection by 2030. The South African Whale Disentanglement Network is a group of highly trained, dedicated individuals working to ensure the safe release of whales and dolphins found entangled off our coast. The National Stranding Network is another such group of volunteers attending to marine strandings on our shores. The Safari app can be used not only to record your awesome cetacean sightings, but also to report a marine animal in distress. South Africa has some of the strictest regulations in the world when it comes to boat-based whale watching, to minimize disturbance-induced stress in cetaceans and to promote responsible ecotourism. When it comes to the impact we can have on cetacean conservation, remember the power that our everyday choices hold. Only support responsible fisheries and permitted boat-based whale watching operators. Reduce your use of single-use items and materials, clean up your local neighborhood river or beach, and encourage other sustainable living choices. You should now be able to answer all of these questions, and these quizzes, along with a bunch of others, can be found on the lockdown learning page of my website, scientistinlimbo.com. You can watch clips of the feeding humpback supergroups, glimpsing what it's like underwater surrounded by lunging whales, and a section of the Our Oceans film where local biologists document the post-whaling recovery of the humpback. You can also enjoy the moment a juvenile whale is saved by the South African Whale Disentanglement Network. I filmed that video of a 7.5-meter humpback whale caught in octopus pots in False Bay. And I apologize in advance for the sometimes obscured footage. I was perched on the roof of the wheelhouse and was simultaneously taking ID photos with a very large, very expensive department camera. All these links can be found under Lesson 6 on my lockdown learning page. This week's activities include some ocean-themed crafts, making a blue whale out of a paper plate or egg box, making a leaping dolphin out of recycled material, and an origami dolphin bookmark. Links to all the instructions can be found on the lockdown learning page of my website, scientistinlimbo.com. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week for a lesson about sharks.